Hey there and welcome. If you're new, welcome back. If you're not, my name is Brittany and today we're going to be talking about 10 things I wish I had known as a brand new homeschooler. Plus, I have one bonus tip at the very end. So the first thing is that the first year is typically kind of a mess for everyone, especially if your kids are coming out of a public school setting and or if you were not homeschooled yourself. It takes a while to figure out what actually works for your family. So that first year, you're going to spend a lot of time trying things out and figuring out what doesn't work and what you don't like and what doesn't work for your kids and what your kids don't like. Not saying we should cater everything to our kids, but keeping in mind that we do want our education to be a positive experience is always good, and making sure they're having plenty of opportunities to explore their interests is also very important. So you are going to learn more about yourself and your kids in that first year than I think really any time in your whole parental experience, because you are going to learn how their brain works and how your teaching style works, what you think your homeschool should look like versus what it actually needs to look like. Our goals a lot of times don't line up with what we actually can attain. We think that we should be doing all of these things, and then whenever we put them into practice, it actually doesn't work very well for our family. So making sure that we have those realistic expectations is really important, and we can only know that through trial and error, through going through that experience and trying out different ways of learning, ways of teaching, and figuring out what actually works. And that brings me to my second tip. Know your students' learning style and your teaching style, but don't get too hung up on it. A lot of times whenever we come into homeschooling, and I will tell people this myself, you want to know your students' learning style. You want to know your teaching style. If you want a really good video, I'll put it in the description box below for learning your students' learning styles and your teaching styles, your homeschooling styles. That is important to know. But a lot of times people will get so hung up on it that they can only do a curriculum if it's Charlotte Mason, or if it's classical, or if it's traditional, or they can only do something if there is an auditory element to it, to where they can do audiobooks, or their kid's a kinesthetic learner, and so they need to have full-on hands-on, everything needs to be hands-on. And while that's great, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities for other good curriculum options if you are really stuck on that. And on top of that, most people don't fit into this nice, neat little box of Charlotte Mason or classical or unit studies or unschooler. Most of us have different elements pulled into one big mesh, mixed up ball. And so be willing to do what works for your family. So take the test. Take the test that tells you what your teaching style is, and take bits and pieces of what you like of it. For example, when I have done these tests before, mine came back as Charlotte Mason, classical, unschooling, which is kind of funny when you think like classical and unschooling. It doesn't make any sense. But I take elements of each of those and I mesh them all together into what works for my family and for my kids. You don't have to have a specific style in order to be successful. What is going to make you successful is having a school that works for you and works for your kids. So tip number 3 is don't jump ship too fast on homeschooling and on your curriculum. So like I said, and tip number 1 is that the first year is kind of a mess. So it's going to feel chaotic. You're going to feel like I am just too impatient. I can't do it. I can't keep going. I can't do this for year number 2, 3, 4, 5. But a lot of times that first year is really hard, and then it starts to get a little bit easier as you start to understand your kids and your teaching style and things like that and what actually works for you. And then also with the curriculum. Whenever you start with a curriculum, especially if it's a curriculum you've never done before, it can feel very challenging. And we're very tempted to just say, it doesn't work and we can't keep doing this curriculum. We need to switch to a different curriculum. And I am the world's worst with switching curriculum mid-year, and don't do that. I have done it a handful of times, but I have had the temptation numerous times. And so don't jump ship too quickly, because a lot of times you can make changes to the curriculum to make it work, or maybe you just need to push through because it's something that your kids need to be challenged on. But that also does bring me to my fourth tip, which is you are also not married to the curriculum. So sometimes we do need to push through. Sometimes it is something we need to challenge ourselves on or challenge our children on, but also there are some times when the curriculum just doesn't work for our kid or it doesn't work for our family. And so you do need to make those changes. I would avoid jumping ship mid-year and try to push through. But if at the end of the year, or if you have to, if after a few months of trying, it's just still not working, then you can change curriculum. If it's not working, it's not working, and there are too many good curriculum options out there to stay with something that isn't working for your child. I feel like those two tips kind of go hand in hand, because there's a lot of times where, you know, all kids fight schooling at some point, and you do have to push through. But if you're constantly having to battle them on school every single day and it's going on for months on end, then maybe it is a good idea to go ahead and switch into a curriculum. Only you as the homeschool mom know what's best for your kid in that situation. Consult your husband, make sure y'all are all on the same page, and then make the switch if necessary. So that brings me to tip number 5. Don't be scared to change the curriculum if it's not working. So this is kind of a way around my last one. If you can't change your curriculum, your husband really likes this curriculum and you need to stick with it. You are mid-year and you have to make it work for the next 6 months until you can switch to something else. Change the curriculum a little bit. You can take things out, add things in, just stick to the baseline and keep pushing through so that you're not wasting money, you're honoring your husband and his wishes, and you're making it work. You don't have to do everything that the curriculum says that you have to do. You are the homeschool mom. If you know that your child doesn't need to do 15 problems to get the answer or to get the concept, then just make them do 10. You know, you can make those changes in order to accommodate your specific student and your specific needs. My one word of caution when it comes to changing curriculum and leaving things out is to make sure that you've actually given it a full, fair shot. There's a lot of things that I used to leave out on curriculum that I feel like I cheated my kids out of some things, because a lot of times our kids are capable of more than we give them credit for. So I have gotten better about this. For example, we just started first language lessons for my second grader. They have been memorizing a poem for a week and they already want them to recite it. And my thought was, oh no, this is way too quickly. This is an entire poem. They can't possibly have an entire poem memorized in 1 week. And my goodness, he did. He had the whole thing memorized. But I was all ready to jump in there in like mama bear protective mode and be like, you know what? We're just gonna say it together for a couple more days and then you can try. And if I hadn't just listened to the curriculum and just said, hey, we're gonna try, I want you to try and see if you can do that poem on your own, I never would have known that he could have done it. And the same thing with our math that we use. There's a lot of practice problems, but the thing that my older son has taught me is that repetition is good, and a lot of times kids need to do problems over and over and over again in order to really solidify those facts. And so I do make him do all of the work, even though he's begging me, Mom, can I just do half of it? I'm like, sorry, Charlie, you really need to just do it because it will help you long term. So my next tip is, just because it works for one kid doesn't mean it works for all, and vice versa. Now this goes with kids and families. Just because a curriculum works for one family and your sister loves it, or your best friend does it with all of her kids and has been doing it for 10 years, doesn't mean it's gonna work for yours. And even child to child, one curriculum, my oldest child could never do the math that my youngest child is doing. It just doesn't work for his brain. He needs a completely different curriculum. And so if you have tried something with one of your children and then you try it with their younger sibling and it feels like it's not working the same way, they may just be a little different and they need a different curriculum, and that's fine. Make sure you are looking at your specific child, your specific family needs in order to make them most successful, and you're not comparing them to other kids, especially siblings, because that's a whole mess. Make sure that they have the curriculum that's going to work for them, not the curriculum that worked for their older sibling. So for a more practical tip, which I guess the other ones were practical, but this feels even more relatable for the non-first time homeschoolers. I have to remind myself of this one. It takes 3 weeks of schooling to get any sort of rhythm. And I honestly would say it takes 6 weeks to feel like, yep, we're fully in full homeschool mode, you know, got the swing of it going. I have noticed every single year, week 1 is crazy. It is like my house is a mess. We're eating, you know, I really think that I need to start doing freezer meals over the summer to prep for that first week of school. And it's just a little nutso. Second week is a little better. My house doesn't look like a tornado went through it. And we're kind of getting a little bit of a rhythm. It's still a little messy. It's still a little bit chaotic, but we're getting there. By week 3, I'm like, okay, I know the schedule I want to see in place. I know I'm actually making my dinners successfully. My house is picked up again, and I kind of get a flow going. By week 6, we are fully like, we have our schedule down. We have our, you know, we're doing everything in a good, consistent manner. So give yourself plenty of time to figure it out, especially those first 3 weeks. Those first 3 weeks are a lot of figuring out what the schedule needs to look like, especially if you're adding in new kids. If you have upcoming kindergartners or anything like that, new preschoolers, you've had a new baby, you have toddlers, you are going to need plenty of time to figure out, how do I need to keep these little kids entertained? How do I need to keep everybody at the table? Or should I keep everybody at the table? Should I do it in shifts? And even if you're not adding anybody new in, as the kids get older, the way that you're going to school them is going to shift and it's going to change. And so giving yourself plenty of time to figure out what it needs to look like and figure out how you can incorporate everybody without completely going nuts. I mean, it takes some time. It takes some time to get there. So give yourself a solid 3 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks to figure all of that out. Okay, so my next one is, if you have kids in the elementary school phase, 4-day school weeks are your friend. So especially if you have preschool, kindergarten, up through about 3rd to 4th grade, those years are so intense for mama. I mean, you are going to be teaching kids to read. You still have to sit down and teach them all of the math skills. You're going to be doing active involvement with their science and their history, and you are so involved in that point that it's really hard to keep up on anything else. We're homeschool moms, but we're also homemakers, and so we have laundry piling up. We have a house that people are actively living in all the time because we have kids with us all the time, so our house is getting wrecked. We have dishes to do. We have all of these things that are piling up. And we can pretty much keep up on the daily stuff, and then, at least me, I can keep up on the daily stuff. I can keep up on homeschooling the kids, but my deep cleaning really does not get done during the week. It does Monday through Thursday. I am full on homeschooling mode. And then Friday, my high schooler still does do his schoolwork, but Friday is my deep cleaning day. So we'll still do things like read aloud and stuff, but really I am focusing on doing any deep cleaning that didn't get done throughout the day, anything that has been missed. I also leave Fridays open for kind of like a catch-all day. If there's anything that happened during the week that has set us off of our schedule, we are going to catch it on Friday. So if I had an appointment and we got everything done except for a history lesson, we're going to do a history lesson on Friday as well. but mostly I leave it open for cleaning. That's when I get all of my deep cleaning done. I do think upper middle school and high school probably does need a 5-day school week. One, to be able to fit in all of their curriculum without overwhelming them, but also I feel like it prepares them for life, because whenever they get into the real world, they won't have 4-day school weeks, but they won't have 4-day work weeks. They're gonna have to work 5 days. And so you do have to prepare them for that. They're gonna have to get used to it. And so I think upper middle school and high school, 5 days, and then the younger grades, 4 days. But that's what works for me. If it doesn't work for your family, then don't do that. My second to last one, relationships over academics, always. So if you are feeling a lot of tension with your child, if the curriculum has been working, but now it's not working, and you don't think it's because they're not getting it, there just seems to be a lot of animosity building between you and your child, I would spend more time pouring into that child outside of school. And I would not continue on with a curriculum if it was causing too much strife between me and that child. Kids are always going to fight at some point. All of your children, I have never had a child that didn't fight me on school at some point. You know, they want to play, they want to do stuff that's fun. So at some point they are going to resist schooling. But if you are consistently fighting a child on their schooling, then one, make sure that they are feeling loved, that they are getting enough attention outside of schoolwork, but then also review the curriculum, make sure that it is a curriculum that is a good fit, because your relationship with that child is the most important thing. You are mom before you are teacher, and so make sure that you're not putting such a heavy pressure on having this certain level of schoolwork that it is destroying your relationship with your child. Like I said, too many good curriculum options out there for you to push something that just isn't working. Tip number 10. Different things are going to click for different children at different times. This is why I don't like the public school model. I know it's necessary for some families, so don't get me wrong on that. But where it fails is that different kids need to be pushed at different times in different areas. And so, like specifically, most boys, for example, boys tend to be later readers. Not always, but a lot of times reading is just going to click for them a little bit later than girls. And sometimes for girls too, it's just different children, they will click on reading at different times. The same thing for math. You can try to push math and push math and push math, but sometimes it's just going to click at a different point. And I had that with my oldest, is that math was really hard for him for a long time, and it was a lot of pushing forward, and I kept worrying. I'm like, he's just not getting it, he's just not getting it, he's just not getting it. And then he hit like mid 7th grade and it just clicked, and he has been fine ever since. So don't stress too much if it's not working. Reading, for example, is something that I take very gently. Just if it's not clicking and they're not reading yet, pull back a little bit, read a lot more to them. There's a lot. I'm going to do a whole separate video on teaching your kids to read, probably in a few months once I've successfully taught 3 kids, and so then we can talk about it. So don't stress too much if it feels like it's just not clicking, because a lot of kids, they just need more time. And so just keep on pushing forward, doing a lot of review on the things that you feel like they're struggling with. I'm sorry if you can hear that. My husband's working on the bathroom. Just make sure to go at their pace. And my final bonus tip, you are going to feel like you are failing at some point, possibly multiple points. You aren't. It's just very challenging. As long as you are actively teaching your kids, you're actively pouring into your kids, and you're making their education a priority, you are not failing them. Just keep on trying. If something's not working, address it, and make sure you have a good support system that you can turn to and talk to whenever you're struggling, and that can give you really good practical advice. I am always happy to help new homeschool moms. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. I am happy to connect with you and try to get you in the right direction. So that is everything that I have for this video. That's everything that I could think of that I wish I would have known as a first-time homeschool mom. This is such a if you are a new homeschool mom, welcome to the community. And I will say this as kindly as I can. I don't envy you. Only because I promise it gets easier. It's very overwhelming that first year, and it feels very challenging, and it does feel sometimes like you just can't do it, but I promise you can. And if I can do it, you can do it. And just give it plenty of time, build your community, and if you are a believer, keep taking it back to the Lord and pray about it, because He will strengthen you to do all things He's called you to. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like this video, I hope you'll consider sticking around and subscribing. I do all kinds of homeschooling, homemaking, grocery hauls kind of content on this channel. I'm also going to leave my Instagram handle in the description box below if you want to follow me for more of my day-to-day life. And until next time, bye.